Hey guys, welcome to TeensGotCents. Today my guest is Pat Flynn of SmartPassiveIncome.com, and I had the pleasure of meeting Pat at FinCon and got to know him a little bit. But really, my first impression of Pat was before the conference even started. He tweeted me to tell me that he was excited to get to meet me at FinCon, and he's like a famous person who acknowledged my existence, and it was quite a awesome day here in the Baker household. So thank you, Pat, and welcome.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
Good, good. Well, first, I was just wanted to thank you for the keynote speech that you gave at FinCon, and it was just such a great reminder to me about first impressions and how important they are, and when you ran down the aisle and face planted on the stage, it was a great reminder of why they are so important, and it was definitely very memorable.
Thank you. Well, first impressions are something you'll never forget. As they say, you never get a second chance to leave a good first impression. And when it comes to anything involved with trying to create a relationship with somebody or trying to do business with somebody, those first impressions are incredibly important. And that's something that's often overlooked, especially in the space I'm in, which is online business and marketing, because when people arrive on your website, there are literally just less than 7 seconds. Actually, when you meet someone in person for the first time, people are already making judgment calls about you and thinking about you in a certain way in the first 7 seconds. Even before you start talking to each other, there's body language and things like that are involved with how people are going to feel about you. And based on that, that's how they're going to interact. And maybe they're immediately going to attach to you as a friend, or maybe they're going to be a little bit laid back, or maybe a little bit self-conscious, not express anything that's on their mind because they're worried. All based on a first impression. But online, it's actually less than a second that you have to leave a good first impression. And there are a lot of things people are doing sort of incorrectly online that are leaving a negative first impression. It's really hard to get those impressions back. And the reason this is a big deal to me is because a long time ago I asked about 100 of my followers just randomly, what was the first impression when you got to my website for the first time? And most of them said, it wasn't a good first impression. I was very overwhelmed, and I actually left. And I only came back because I kept hearing your name, and I kept seeing other people tweet and send me links to your articles. So I eventually came back, and once I started to read your content, then I got into your stuff. But even before people read your stuff, even before people listen to your podcast, they have a first impression. If it's good, they're more than likely going to follow through with what you have going on and make a real connection with you. If it's bad, then you're not even giving people a chance to get involved with what you're doing.
Right. And I know that's a lot of the points that you touched on, obviously, in your speech, but could you maybe talk about first impressions related to teens a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. First impressions are important for everything. When you talk about relationships, when you talk about how your impression is with your teachers and things like that, those things go a long way. If you go into class, on the first day of school, and your pants are sagged and you have like gangster clothing on, immediately people are going to think about you in a certain way, and it's sad that that's the case. That how you dress. I'm not saying you have to dress well. I'm just saying you have to be conscious about sort of ideas and what you're portraying to other people. Because if I were to go back into time and talk to my younger self, the one thing I would say is, Pat, you have to meet and become friends with as many people as possible, because you never know. I've learned through my 31 years of life that the incredible things that have happened in my life have been a result of other people that have, either hooked me up or introduced me to somebody that got me a job, or, it was all because of other people. And so if I were to go back to my younger self and be like, dude, Pat, just meet, I know you're a shy guy. I was totally shy. I was always the guy in the back of class who never raised their hand, or, I would be in conversations, but I wouldn't say anything until somebody asked me a question. And that's okay. It's okay to be shy. It's okay to be an introvert. But if you really want to give yourself the best chance to have amazing things happen in your life, try and meet and become friends with as many people as possible, because especially now with how connected we all are, people want to do business and people want to help out other people. That's why the businesses that are successful today are businesses where the person behind them, like Mark Zuckerberg. We all know Mark Zuckerberg. He's the owner of Facebook. But we know Mark. There was a movie about him and stuff. But because we know him, we feel like even though he has this billion-dollar company, it's Mark, right? And so that's why I love the business I do, because I share a lot of things in my life that people can connect with. But going back to the teens and stuff, it's really important. You're going to give yourself a better edge if you understand what that first impression is. And part of that is understanding who you're speaking to, or who you are either trying to make an impression on. And it sort of varies depending on, who you're speaking to or who you're with, or, if you're an adult, or if you're with other adults, or if you're with other kids or other teens. So you just have to be self-conscious really about that. And even asking other people. I mean, that's one thing that I know I never wanted to do. And I don't even think I would, when I was a teen, I wouldn't go to my friends and be like, hey, what was your first impression of me? I wouldn't ask for feedback, right? But asking for feedback is exactly how you get ahead, because you understand how other people feel about you or what's wrong, and you can use that as constructive criticism to help you move forward. And a lot of people will be offended by those answers when really those people are actually just trying to be honest with you and help you out. If that makes sense.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. I know that when I did an interview with a manager of a Chick-fil-A, one of the very first impressions that he would look for in someone was if they had done their research on the company and if they knew anything about it, and that was really important. And that was a lot of times what made the difference between him hiring that person or not.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So, now I saw your blog post that just kind of outlined the incredible effort that you put into your keynote speech at FinCon and how important that whole process was. And I was just wondering if you could just tell me about that, because I find it so fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I put in over 250 hours of work into that presentation, which sounds like a lot for just 1 hour on stage. But, I felt like I owed the FinCon community, because it was back in 2011 when FinCon first started. They gave me my first opportunity to come up on stage and speak in front of a crowd, which is something I always knew I should do. As a business owner, I always, it's good to get up on stage and become authoritative on that level and, share ideas in a way that is going to help other people. But I was too shy. I was too scared of public speaking and getting up on the stage. It is the number one fear in the world. Mm-hmm. Even above dying, people are more afraid of getting up on stage than they are of dying, which is crazy. But I was in that statistic. I was definitely afraid of it. But when Philip Taylor, the founder and the organizer of FinCon, said, "Pat, we would love to have you speak," I knew that that was a sign that I should say yes and do what I could to present. And so they gave me my first opportunity. It went really well. Since then, I've spoken dozens of times at over a dozen different events, and FinCon is still my favorite event. So I knew that coming back and being invited to do the keynote a couple of years later, I really want to knock it out of the park. And because it was the opening keynote, I knew that would be the first impression of the entire event. And that's why I chose first impressions as my topic, and why I wanted to leave a crazy one, like falling flat on my face. And actually, I spent a good number of hours actually practicing that fall too, because I knew there are ways to do it properly and where you won't hurt yourself. Spread out your weight and across your hands and more of surface area. But I forgot that the stage was going to be not carpet, which is where I was practicing on. So when I actually did it, I actually hurt myself a little bit. Not very many people know this, but I had a bruise sort of under my rib for a couple of weeks after that. But it was totally worth it. It was totally worth it. I didn't feel it at the time because all the adrenaline and the rush, and mm-hmm. I presented really well. But when I got home, I was like, "What is this pain in my side here? I don't remember hitting anything." But then I remember I fell, and I have video proof too to go along with it.
Oh, it was really funny. I'm sorry that you hurt yourself, though. I had no idea. That's so funny.
Yeah, no, it was totally worth it, though. I mean, the reaction, I was in the moment, so I wasn't looking around to see how other people reacted. But afterwards, people were like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you really fell." And people were getting up "Oh my God." They were actually really concerned. And I didn't want to scare people, but that's why I only paused for a few seconds before I came back up. And what I did was, after I fell, I sort of rewound.
Yep.
And then went back forward. And the idea was, you can't rewind a first impression. You only have one chance to do it, so you better make a good one. And apparently people are still talking about that fall. So it's definitely made the impression that I wanted to make.
Absolutely. Now, when you were a teen, did you ever think that you would be where you are today, that you would be a businessman in the online world?
No, not at all. I mean, when I was a teen, the online world was just sort of getting started, and mm-hmm. online world to me was playing video games with other people around the United States. That was the extent of it. America Online was something they had where there was chat rooms, and that was the extent of the internet, was America Online. We actually had to dial up with our phones through the phone line in the house to connect to the internet, and it would take 2 minutes, and you'd hear this weird sound. I don't know if you even understand what that means, but if you go back and listen to how people used to connect to the internet, it was like that. So no, I really had no idea. I didn't even know the extent of the possibilities or everything that's going to happen with technology and how much it's opened up opportunities for all of us. I thought I was going to be an architect and maybe have my own business when I was 50 or 60, because that's how long it takes to get to that point in that particular industry. And I went to school for architecture for 5 years at UC Berkeley. I got the dream job I've always wanted right after. I worked in the field for 4 or 5 years doing amazing things like building restaurants and building hotels in Las Vegas. And then all of a sudden, in 2008, I got laid off. And that was a crushing blow for me, because that's what, I mean, I had this life plan and I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. But it was only when I got laid off and couldn't get another job that I discovered, what was happening online, and that I could actually be my own boss and create, my own success. And I love it now, because if I fail, I know I failed because it was my own fault, not because of something else that I had no control over. Because at the time in 2008, that's when the U.S. economy sort of went down the tank, and just nobody was building any buildings, so nobody needed any designers or architects, and so my job left with it. And back then, it was the worst, sort of lowest point of my life, but turns out it was the best thing that ever happened.
Right. So because of that whole experience that you had with spending so much time in school and then getting laid off, do you think that it's worth it for teens to, or what is your perspective now on the college education?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me this because they're like, Pat, like, you own your own businesses now, and you're not even using architecture in what you do now. Like, do you think it was worth it? Do you think that was money wasted? What are your thoughts? And I would absolutely say that college is an experience that I would not trade. Okay. Not necessarily for the education. There were a lot of things I learned that were interesting, but most of what I actually learned, like the actual education stuff, I'm not using now. And even when I became an architect, I wasn't using what I learned very much in school. I mean, it helped prepare me, but as far as the actual information that I learned, most of it was learned through experience after graduating and becoming an architect, becoming a part of the real world. So I would recommend that if you're in school, try to work in areas that you're interested, so you can get that real life experience, and that's going to help you in school as well. But as far as college and what that did for me, it taught me so much about time management, project management, just understanding how I work and how I work best, understanding how to learn things. And if I could go back into time again and talk to my college younger self, I would say, take the opportunity in all the classes that you have to take. Yeah, they might not be completely relevant to what you're doing, Anthropology 1 or, all these other random things that you might need to take to get credits to then do what you need to do for your major. Use those as opportunities to enhance your learning skills, to see what you can do to better and faster and more efficiently learn things, so that when you actually do stuff in your trade or your career, you're going to be able to better adapt and to better learn things that will help you progress faster than others in the industry. And that is what I would, the learning experience, in becoming better at learning, the just managing my time, being on my own. That was a huge thing for me, because I always had my parents there. That was the first time I actually had to make decisions on my own as far as where to go and understand, really what my priorities were as well. That's the first time I actually started to make a complete life decisions about what was most important in my life and where I should go and what I should do and what I shouldn't do. Also, as far as understanding the importance of networking and building those relationships with other people, that was incredibly valuable at college too. So I would recommend, if I, for instance, my son, he's almost 4 now. If he was like, Daddy, should I go to college? I'm like, yeah, totally. But here's what you should think about going into it. And know that you may not do as a career what you learn in school, but that doesn't mean it would be a waste. And I wouldn't take back the 5 years I did in architecture school, not at all, because it's taught me a lot about life and preparation and failing, and if failing is important, and that's understanding that that's actually a part of it. It's part of the process of life is failing, so you could take those failures and learn from your mistakes and consciously do things better the next time around. There's so many things about college that I enjoy. Even beyond education. I was in clubs, I was in marching band, and that whole experience. My connection in the marching band at University of California, Berkeley, is what helped me land a job in architecture. Which actually, my job in architecture led to my first online business, which was related to an exam that architects take. So, if I didn't go to school, I wouldn't have gone, or if I didn't go to school, I wouldn't have trained to be an architect and get that job that allowed me to take this exam and understand how to pass it so I could help other people pass it too. I mean, it's a big, long butterfly effect. Um, just as long as you keep an open mind, and if you're interested in creating, businesses of your own along the way, um, you know, always keep that in mind and look for those opportunities while at school or even in, your career afterwards too, because there are a ton of opportunities. You just have to be sort of open to them.
Right, absolutely. So you would say for a teen who in high school who knows that they want to specifically go into online business, you would just tell them to go ahead and go to college anyways, even if it was just to like get their AA, just for the experience and the connections that they can make.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because that's where a lot of people are at who also might share the same values as you. And yes, there is the worry of being in debt afterwards, and that's
Mm-hmm.
obviously something that you have to consider. I mean, I wouldn't purposely go to a college that I couldn't afford, and there's obviously scholarship opportunities and things like that you should take advantage of. Actually, that's another huge thing that I missed out on. I applied for one scholarship, and it was only because I had learned that there was a deadline the next day, and I missed out on all the other deadlines, and I actually got the scholarship. And if only I had known and was conscious about the opportunities that were available for me as far as scholarships are concerned, I could have. I mean, maybe not the whole 4 or 5 years paid for, but a lot, significant amount of money. I mean, there's a lot of money being thrown to inspiring and really motivated students. And I was one of those. I just didn't know those opportunities existed, or maybe subconsciously I was just lazy and I didn't want to try, or I didn't believe that I could get those scholarships. But the one I did apply for, I did get, and I'm just like kicking myself because those opportunities aren't always going to be there. But when they are, you should take them.
Right, absolutely. Now, you're an expert in developing online businesses. Can you just brainstorm and share some specific ideas of what teens might be interested in starting an online business?
Yeah, well, the thing about online business and the beautiful part about it is that when you have a shop online or a store online or whatever, that thing is open 24/7, 365 days a year, even on the holidays. It's always there, and it's available to anybody with a computer. So you are able to provide something to the entire world as opposed to that store down the corner, which only serves your community, and you have to be there. The lovely thing about online business as well, besides being open all the time, is you can build it in a way that it's working for you, where you can work on your business instead of in it. For example, with my site that I talked about earlier that helps people pass this exam in the architecture industry, I've written some books and I have practice exams that people can buy. People can come to the site, buy those things, and immediately after they check out, they get those things delivered to them via email because they're electronic, or they get them over the internet. And I don't have to be there in order for a transaction to happen. So I can actually wake up in the morning with more money in my bank account. Like, it sounds crazy, but we live in a world now where that's possible, and there are tools available to us that make that happen. Now, the underlying sort of factor there, what makes this possible, besides these systems and these tools and pieces of software that do this for us, is the idea of providing value. Being able to solve somebody's solution or somebody's problem, or finding somebody else's pain and discovering what you could do to help solve that pain. So really, if you want to start your own business, no matter what it is, but especially if it's online, you have to find a market or a niche. And what that means, like a specific group of people who have a specific need or pain. And that's going to take some, getting uncomfortable and getting out of your box a little bit, asking around. I mean, there might be problems and issues and things that you might be able to solve one way or another in your own community. You just have to ask around and see what's there. Trying to think of a specific example. There's a guy who I interviewed in one of my podcasts. His name was Mike Doonan. And he and his wife worked in speech therapy. And they noticed that there were a lot of kids out there with speech problems, and there were these tools that were sort of okay at helping them. And so they were like, oh, well, why don't we create an iPad application and an iPhone application that'll help these kids, and we'll create a little mouse character to go along with it so they'll be intrigued and have fun with it. And, she used her education, but put that solution for that problem on this platform, which had mass distribution. Everybody almost has a smartphone these days. And Mike and his wife are making $25,000, $30,000 a month now by helping people through this app on the iPad or the iPhone. I mean, it's so awesome because they're providing value, they're giving a solution that is widely distributed, but they're also getting paid in return. And it's just so awesome. And that's their niche, So what is your niche? You have to discover what that niche is. For me, when I came out of architecture and got laid off, my niche was serving those who wanted to pass this exam in that industry. And it wasn't just architecture too, it was like construction workers and designers and interior designers and stuff also. So that was my solution, was this study guide and practice exams for that particular niche. And, niching is really important because you might think, oh, well, I want to build something that everybody in the world's going to use. But it's highly unlikely that you're going to create the next Angry Birds, right? Something that has universal appeal. The easiest thing to do is find a specific group that has that problem and provide that solution. And what's awesome about that is if you work with those people to help build that solution, you're going to have the perfect solution. So maybe find 2 or 3 people and work directly with them to create that thing, whatever it may be. It might be a physical product, it might be a piece of software, or it might be just a package of information in like an ebook or something, or a course perhaps. And you can work with them to create it the way that they would want it, because they're your target audience, and then you can distribute it to everybody else. And it's so fulfilling, and it's so cool. And even though you're not helping the entire world, you're helping somebody's world, and that's what's important. And you honestly don't need very many customers to make a great living. I mean, my site is at greenexamacademy.com. You can check it out now. You can see my picture there. I've only sold over the course of the past 5 years, perhaps 15,000 to 18,000 books at $29 each. But that's been a significant amount of money for me in my life, and it's really changed my life. So I've only affected really less than 20,000 people, but I've affected 20,000 people, and it's really helped me, and I've helped them. It's just a nice mutual sort of synergy when you try to provide value and you do that. I mean, more often than not, it's going to come back to you in return. And that's been my business model ever since. Do whatever you can to serve a particular audience, and it's always going to come back to you.
Oh, I think 20,000 people is an incredible amount of people. That's really huge. That's incredible that you've had that opportunity.
It is, but like when you think of like the 7 billion people in this world, that's like a fraction of a percentage, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to change the entire world, although that would be awesome if you could. But you don't have to if you want to make this happen for you. Right.
And now, just in closing, your website, Smart Passive Income, is completely devoted to helping people start an online business. Where is the best place for a teenager to come and start on your website?
Sure. I mean, if you just go to the homepage, smartpassiveincome.com, you'll see right under the main menu there's a big green Get Started button. I would recommend you go there. Everything on the website's free, so you can check out that information. It's all free, and I'm just here to help. And I will tell you, it's not easy. It's going to take a long time, and a lot of hard work and dedication, but I almost feel like that hard work and the struggles that people go through, which is all required, the failures, you're not going to get it right the first time. It's all necessary, and I feel like it's there in the universe to sort of weed out the people who don't really want it. And if you really want it, you're going to do it no matter what. And so that would be a great place to start. It's going to introduce you to sort of different methods of online business, because there's not just one way to do it, and you can see what sort of resonates with you the most, and you can sort of start to sort of hash out a market and a niche that you might want to serve from there. So that'd be the best place to start, and thank you for letting me share that here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome, and just thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.